The inspiration for Firehawks project originates from my own experience in fire setting, which happened for a short period, probably between the ages of 7 and 9. I'm not that sure because I'd forgotten about it. I'd compartmentalised it and hidden it away till I was in my 40s. And then I realised in my sort of middle age that it obviously had far more meaning and was more severe and more impactful through my adult life than I'd thought. I hadn't given it the credence that it deserved. I got out of fire setting because other things came which were more important and more exhilarating. So it just stopped and I just went into doing something else, which triggered my engagement with photography straight away. So I started taking photos from the age of 10 and I was obsessed with it instantly. My fire setting was definitely about ownership of sort of my landscape, my space, and the feeling of being out of control with adults and wanting that element of control back on my world, on my life.
Stephen's been really quite remarkable in how he's captured end outcomes for fire setting behaviour. He is able to show how it becomes for many children a voice, because there's a real emotional need and driver for why somebody is using fire. If we think of fire setting behaviour as a spectrum of motive and outcome, there's a real spectrum and range of image and outcome he's captured. There's an honesty, there's a real raw honesty about what this behaviour can give somebody. There's a confident vulnerability that he's able to show the hurt that can sit behind this behaviour. What makes fire setting behaviour unique, what the research tells us, is that it's specifically around the fire interest. So we think often about what's being communicated by this behaviour, what is the outcome of the behaviour, and is that in some way rewarding the child or teenager. So we're interested in, yes, what the end outcome is, because that might tell us an indication of why this child is setting fires in the first place. That end outcome is perhaps what they're seeking because it's bringing attention to something that can't be said through words or other behaviours.
We used to call them fire setters, but now we have changed the terminology to children who set fires, taking away any label or any blame, because in my experience not just in my experience, it is a form of communication, and that communication usually comes from pain or neglect. So when I look at the child who is in front of me, I look at the environment where they're coming from, and 9 times out of 10, the environment that they're coming from, especially if they've been referred to our scheme, they are coming from neglect, abuse. Those words sound quite harsh, which sometimes they are harsh. So I look at the child, I look at the background of the child. What is that child going through? My work is around the child, but I have to take into consideration the background. And I will then work with the child holistically and adapt myself to whatever that child's needs are.
Often what can happen when we think of a child setting fires is we're quick to pathologise or medicalise. There must be something wrong with this child. The question then we need to ask is, well, what's happened to this child? Again, not what's wrong with this child. So the representation of fire as demonic, the flames of hell, it's quick to see fire setting as something intrinsically bad, dangerous, when what we should be asking is, well, what's happening here? What's going on here? What's the story here?
There's always a reason why a young person is behaving in the way they're behaving. We may find out the answer to that, we might not, but every single time there is an underlying reason behind it. I think most young people, I think specifically young men, have experimented with fire at some point. Maybe they're influenced by other people, but typically if that young person is involved in setting a deliberate fire, there's a willingness to engage on their part to some degree. We want to address this with the young person and the families by providing that education, but also signposting where possible so that it doesn't become more of an issue for that young person, so the police don't have to become involved, which might be something which sticks with that young person for a long time.
Every single element and every image has a deep amount of meaning. Being there and photographing it and doing it through that process that was long, was meditative, it kind of let me reconnect. And that's what's interesting to me, is because these conversations have not been had by myself, and in looking at it as an older person and revisiting this as a project, it's just important that those conversations are being had.